While we sleep, the guardians of the night take to the streets, having said goodbye to those they love. Each other knowing they may never say these words again, they face the evil that we run from. They dedicate their lives to those that would hate them because they wear the badge. They wear the badge not for the glory or recognition, but because they were born to honor the thin blue line. This is the LEO First Podcast. We'll talk to the men and women in law enforcement, those that have retired, and anyone who's impacted by law enforcement. We'll peel back the curtain, and you'll get the real stories. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Every law enforcement officer has a story to tell. Get ready to hear from the men and women who put their lives on the line every day for their communities and their country. Welcome to the LEO First Podcast. Now, here's your host, Michael Laidler.
Hey everybody, it's Michael Laidler, your host of the LEO First Podcast. And this particular episode is going to be a milestone for me. Why? Because this is episode 50. Yes, episode 50 of the LEO First Podcast. You know, when I started this podcast back in 2019, I knew at some point, or at least I had the hope that I would eventually get to 50 episodes, if not 100. And I could tell you just in that time, so much has changed. I've developed my speaking business. I've done so many keynotes since at least 2021. I've now developed a speaker coaching program because I have realized through things like my podcast and people reaching out to me that entering the world as a speaker, especially from the law enforcement realm, is very difficult. And now I offer that kind of training to people who aspire to do that. I haven't have online courses which either reflect my book, Greatness Beyond the Badge, or even short courses that get people's mindset right for speaking. And as I reflect more and more, and I look at the benefits of this show and what it's meant to me, my family, the people around me, it's remarkable what I've been able to accomplish with the help of people like you all that are listening and watching, as well as all of the guests that's been on there. I didn't realize how much I would learn about others. I mean, the whole point of the show was to humanize the badge and show people that it's okay to be who you are in and out of the uniform. And it was okay if you didn't know about the person to listen to the show. And as I have moved on through different parts of episode development, guest development, logos, different intros, my in-person part of the podcast, it's taken a lot. Back in 2019, as I mentioned when I started, my first episode, and I am looking at it right now on the website to confirm because I don't want to get the date wrong, was December 8th, 2019. My very first podcast that I ever recorded. It was called What is an LEO? And the whole point of that very first episode was to create an understanding of what this podcast had to offer for all of the listeners. It didn't matter if you wore a uniform, somebody in your family wore a uniform, or you're just curious and maybe even dislike the police, sheriffs, border patrol agents, corrections, whoever, and you're just curious on what this was. And then towards the end, let me look, and I can tell you because I'm looking at the website right now, my Lipsum site. It was around October of 2020 where I just had a hard stop. I mean, when I say a hard stop, like I stopped doing anything. And it wasn't necessarily related to COVID at the time. It was, I lost the desire. I lost the drive to push for this podcast. And I was doing a lot more than what I wanted to as far as editing and doing the research and finding people. I just didn't have a system in place. And then last year, people kept asking me either to be on their podcast or they were saying, Michael, what was going on with the LEO First Podcast? Like you had a good thing going. And back in May of 2023, I kind of got that fire, that spark. And I think some of it was based on my own keynote presentations where I wanted just to offer people more. And from May 15, 2023, which That probably wasn't the actual day I recorded, but that was the day I pushed it out through Lipsum and YouTube and Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Was an episode I actually called He's Back. And that was me kind of going through what was going on in my professional life and things that had slowed me down. And if you listen to that show, it's kind of the same thing of me, what I'm talking about today, as far as I had exhaustion, I was burned out, like I just had too much stuff going on and not a good system in place. But I decided back in May of 2023 that I would actually bring the show back. And that was episode 11. So from December of 2019 to, let's say, May of 2023, I had 10 episodes. That's it. From May 2023 up to today, which is July 3rd, 2024, I'm at 50 episodes now. So in about a year span, I recorded 40 episodes. And that was through the virtual platform, doing it through Zoom. Now, I did have a few in-person podcasts that I don't have on here that I did in person with guys like Paul Butler, Matt Davis, The Wounded Blue, Sheriff Stevens out in LA, or Under Sheriff Stevens out in LA. And it was so cool just meeting people at all walks of life, male, female, black, white, Hispanic, former law enforcement who's now become counselors, or people that have just suffered through so much depression and they just decided not to be on the show no more. Whatever range you want to look at, we actually had that variety, which has been so dynamic to me. As this is episode 50 and I look towards the next 50 episodes, I've kind of regained that fire again. I know it's like a volume two of fire, because I think, well, no, I know. Let me not say I think I know. The last time I recorded a podcast prior to 2 days ago was, I want to say it was back in, probably back in April. And even in 2024, I probably only recorded like maybe five or six episodes. I realized that my vision and focus going forward in order to elevate this podcast is to make a concentrated effort on marketing it, and maybe not necessarily for monetization, which I do like that, but more on a sense of how to take it to that next level to reach even more viewers. And if you are watching, listening, that's what I want your goal to be for this podcast as well. I want you to hear this podcast, share it, tell people about it. Tell them if you like it or don't like it. But whatever it is, let's get it out there, because a lot of the guests on here are trying each and every day of their lives to either overcome obstacles that have been put in front of them, or they're just trying to get better. They're trying to share their message to see you achieve. I mean, I have people that are currently in law enforcement that has been on the show, that's also been scheduled. You're going to see an episode coming out in the next couple of weeks with a guy that's active in law enforcement. He's been on other podcasts, he's been on TV. So that's something cool you could be looking forward to. But I'm also looking for people that have just experienced life within this LEO realm, law enforcement realm, because I think it's just as important for their voice to be heard. People that are vendors, people that are family members, just people that are been impacted, because law enforcement community isn't just about those that are walking the street or dealing with inmates in the housing units. It's about people that when you go home, those people are important as well. And I want them to make sure that they know how important their voice are. I'm looking forward to creating more multi-person podcasts. I've had that a few times in person and on the show, as you probably have tell back. I did it with Mark Jackson, and Vincent Player, and that would have been episode. Ooh, how far ago was that? How long ago was that? That was let's see. I'm looking right now. That was that was some time ago. I'm still searching for that. Oh, that was back in episode 30, back in October, more likely September of last year. But that show I actually put out in October. But man, it was so fun having more than one person on the show, and the dynamic of people, especially when they know each other, or they have the same concept, and that's been really fun. So I'm looking forward to having that for episodes 51 to 100. Just kind of diving into more panel type, maybe podcasting for this show to bring more views on. Obviously, I'm gonna be reaching out to people, but once again, I want each of you to be involved in how this show grows. Obviously, there has to be a nexus to law enforcement, but whatever you come up with, I'm willing to entertain and listen to because at the end of the day, obviously this show has a relief factor for me because I get to talk to people, I get to share, I get to understand it. I can tell you I've learned a lot from people just them being on the show and what they've gone through. But it's for you guys. What are you guys hungry for? What do you desire to hear? Because I think that's just important because I want to serve you. I want to create this environment where you might be going through something or you just need a little bit of a boost or you're like, man, I want to know how to do this in life. And you say, you know what? The LEO First podcast was created for me. It was created for the everyday person who has a connection to law enforcement. And we know there's people out there that want to see us thrive. I want to hear your opinions. I want to hear your views. You're going to see me pushing this more on Instagram because I realize one of the things about podcasts is that when you want a lot of growth, Instagram is from what I'm researching as it sits in July 2024, is probably one of the best platforms to use when it comes to growing the podcast. So for me, you're going to probably see me on there more. That doesn't mean you're not going to see me on LinkedIn because I love LinkedIn. That's the platform that has allowed me to continuously express myself. And if you've watched even one episode, that's where most of the guests come from is from LinkedIn. I reach out to them, they reach out to me, and we kind of get connected on this platform. I really want each of you to be more involved in the development of future episodes. If you are listening right now, make sure you can either send me a message through Instagram, you can send it through LinkedIn, you can email me, Michael at michaelaidler.com and just give me suggestions. If you have my cell phone number, send me a text, 850-339-0409 and say, hey, you should talk about this topic. Or you know what? This guest would be really good. And you're going to see me putting these polls on Instagram, on Facebook, maybe X, if I can ever figure out X. My views on X. But I want to hear what some of you want me to push because ultimately this is the goal is to have people on here that have an interest in you, people that you can see growing from because this should have some education to it. Obviously, we're going to always have some entertainment. We're always going to joke around. And if you've ever heard me speak, whether it's on a keynote platform, a seminar, even on other people's podcasts, I like to have fun. I like to laugh, and that's what we want. But we want to make sure we get something out of it education wise because I want you to be able to go home to your family each and every day have learned something. If you're spending any time with me, I want to make sure that it's worth your while and that you're gaining some type of value from it. This episode marks number 50, as I mentioned earlier. And I just wanted to tell each and every one of you, thank you for being part of the growth of my podcast, being part of the development of me as a person. This is as therapeutic for me as it might be for some of you, whether it's the guests or people just listening to the podcast. I mean, I really want to go and list off all the names of the people that have been on here, but I don't know if it benefits you guys for me saying 40 names, at least from the last 40 episodes. But I'm so proud and so honored to just have some of these folks that have been on here because as I look through these podcasts, I'm like, man, these are some good people on here. And one of the best parts about all of it is that I've met some of these folks in person. I mean, there's some of these people that through the podcast, I have actually become friends with them. Like we have eaten dinner. I've talked about my family with them. They've met my family. And that's the power of life, guys. That's the power of just taking some of the things that we do each and every day to that next level. I'm not going to keep burning your ears or making your eyes wonder what's going on, but I just wanted to say thank you guys. Thank you to everyone that has supported the show. Be ready because I'm expecting a lot of great speakers and leaders to be on the next 50 episodes and obviously going forward. And I can tell you right now, because of that push, I'm already scheduling people. I actually have one podcast right now in the pipeline that I did this week that will come after I release this one. And like I said, you may recognize them from TV, but definitely I want you to be ready for that one. And I have people lining up in my calendar right now. I want to say, I don't know where my phone's at. And, it's never good not to have your phone around because, that's everybody's lifeline. But I want to say, I just decided to start doing this push again as of last week. And just looking at that on my calendar, I want to say, well, hold on. I found my phone. Let me see. I don't want to lie to you guys. It's no fun, but let me grab my phone real quick. On my calendar for scheduled podcasts. Let's see. One, one in July, two in July. Scheduled three. I saw somebody else's name on her. Four. So, needless to say, the ball's already rolling, and people are getting opportunities to share their story with me already. If you have not been on the podcast, and I will say this, because it's the challenge to you, if you want to come on and bring somebody else on with you that maybe has been a guest before, or you just want that challenge, come on, let's do it. Let's have fun, because the more we speak about what's going on in our lives, especially from the law enforcement element, the more I believe we can grow, and the more I believe we will develop overall. That will be all I'm going to say today. If I missed something, if I didn't have the opportunity to maybe address what you wanted to hear, I apologize in advance. But there's a whole concept of letting you guys know what direction we're going in, because at the end of the day, this podcast is for you. It's to help you grow. And one of the best ways to do that is being part of it. I can't lead by myself. I can't develop this by myself. I don't want to be on here every day talking by myself like I see some people doing in our podcast. I don't have that in me. So that's why I like to bring other people on, and I love to ask questions. I love the asked questions, but I want to just find these different ideas and methods to build you guys. If you haven't had a chance, make sure you go on whatever your favorite streaming platform is, whether it's Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube. Make sure you follow the show. Make sure you link to it. Make sure you keep up with it. Make sure if any episode you heard in the first 50 episodes, to include this one, makes sense, share it with somebody, please. There's so many people out there struggling. We know the suicide rates in law enforcement that they're no joke. And we know people going through depression and suffering PTSD. This might be something that can help them. Even if you don't think it can help you, pass it on, because we all know someone that's struggling. I appreciate you guys. This is probably my fifth time saying it, but that's how serious I'm about it. And I want you all to know that as we move forward, we will continue to grow, and you guys will definitely have the opportunity to take whatever you have going on to the next level. Thank you, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And be ready for the next episode and the other 48 to follow for those episodes 51 to 100. You all have a great day.
You've been listening to the LEO First Podcast. Michael has been in law enforcement since 2005. He's worked for 3 law enforcement agencies in 3 different states. He's a professional speaker who travels the country teaching about leadership development and self-awareness. And he's the author of a book called Greatness Beyond the Badge: The 3 Key Principles for Self-Awareness. It's Michael's passion to bring law enforcement members' stories to the front, so you get the real and raw take. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with Michael on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Michael Laidler, on Twitter at Michael A. Laidler, on Facebook at Michael Laidler Leadership. Send an email to michael@michaellaidler.com and hit the website at michaellaidler.com. See you next time on the LEO First Podcast.